Okay, so this position occurred in the first round of the 2015 Bill Wright St. Louis Open. And what we're talking about today is setting up your chess tactics. Sometimes in a position you'll have a tactic, you'll have a combination you can play right away. But in this case, White needs to set up the threat to make it work. Very often you'll find you don't have a tactic you can immediately play, you don't have a move that works right on that turn, and you need to find a way to create your tactic, to make it so that the threat works next turn. Setting up your tactics, that's what this position is about. Well, in this position it's white to play. I was white, my opponent was rated slightly over 2000, and I noticed that I could immediately take, and play a fork tactic, winning the pawn on c6. That would be a pretty good move, because after I take the pawn on c6, I'll be ahead by 2 whole pawns, and they're passed pawns. There are no enemy pawns in the way. They can move up the board and try to make a queen. But I wanted to find a better move, because I noticed my opponent's bishop on e8 was particularly bad. It had no move it could go to where it would not simply be taken. As I was calculating the forcing moves, I have a rule: always start every position by looking at every forcing move. I noticed again that after take, I had a different check, which created a forcing series of checks. Now, after rook f7 check, the king cannot go to e8, walks in front of a discovery, and rook h7 is simply winning a rook for free because of check. So the king would have to play to g8 instead. And now I was oh so close to trapping the bishop on d8. The point is, the king is no longer on f8, so the bishop cannot go to e7, there's no support. c7 is covered, b6 is covered, but it does have this move bishop a5. So with that in mind, at the start position, I played the move b4. And now the bishop on e7 is really stuck. For example, if Black just tries to free himself with h4, trying to open his rook, now my combination works. I set up my tactic, and I can play my tactic. Knight takes, king takes, check. Here, check. Again, we cannot step over discovered check. Okay, king g8, and rook d7. Now, all of the bishop squares are taken away. I trap the bishop, I win the bishop. So that's the threat. Black has to answer that threat. Now, what are some options? Well, bishop e7 immediately, which has the idea of cutting off the rook from coming to f7, walks into the tactic rook b8 with a monster pin along the 8th row. And if you take the knight, it looks like taking the knight might save the bishop, which it does temporarily, but now the problem is there's no good way to stop pawn to d7. For example, if the king hops out of the pin, pawn d7 anyway. If the bishop moves, I simply promote, I get a free queen. Actually, probably the best way to do it would be take, and then promote. Okay, so that's a total disaster for Black. And if bishop takes pawn, I can simply play rook takes rook. Okay, they can get a bishop out of the deal, but I can move my rook to pretty much any safe square and have a significant advantage. So, Black instead tried the move rook to g6, which covers bishop g6 check. So now, knight takes, king takes, I cannot throw this check, the square is covered. But I noticed something. I looked at this position carefully and I realized Black is running out of moves. For example, let's say I waste a move, waste a pawn move. Well, we've already seen what happens on bishop e7, and the same thing will happen here. Rook to b8, with pressure there. If takes, pawn will queen. And the dark square bishop has no other square available. What about the white square bishop? Well, no, that's not playable. Bishop f7 doesn't work. Bishop g6 is a move, and that's what happened in the game, so we'll save that for later. How about the black rook? Well, rook to g7, I can simply take it, win a piece for free. Why trade for a piece when you can get it for free? And finally, if rook back to h8, now the same tactic works again. Check, here, check. Now the idea of this check, rook f7, very important, is I'm pushing the king over one square. Strong players want to control squares. So if I were to go rook d7 immediately, bishop e7 saves the day. But by going rook f7, the king moves over a square. Now rook d7, and bishop e7, of course, I can simply take it for free, moving the king one square, one apiece for me. Okay, so In this position, after pawn f3 exclamation point, black is virtually in Zugzwang, or Zugzwang. Zugzwang means simply it's your turn, and you have no good move. All moves hurt you. You are compelled to move, you must move, but every move you make costs you something. Well, as we've seen, black cannot move either bishop, black cannot move the rook, the king has no legal moves. Pawn moves, eventually black is going to run out of stuff to do. Of course, it's important to stop rook g5. Pawn moves, eventually black is going to just run out of things to do. So black is in Zugzwang. Well, black tried the move, bishop g6. Remember, simply going back with the rook falls victim to the tactic we've already seen of trapping the bishop on e7. Okay. So black tried instead bishop g6. Well, a similar tactic to the one that we've seen, remember the theme is trapping this piece on d8, a similar tactic works. We're going to control a square, and then we're going to come back and trap the bishop. How do we do that? Well, we start with a remove the guard. Now nothing is guarding rook f7 check. So we remove the bishop from guarding it. Now we can play the check. This square is taken away, so the king has to step away again, and you've probably already figured it out. Rook to d7. The bishop is totally trapped in all directions, and there's no move. You'll notice the king and rook are badly misplaced. There's no move the king and rook can play to come back and save this trapped bishop. So a few moves later, black was down a piece and simply resigned. Alright. Setting up your tactics is an important skill to know. If you start to calculate a forcing combination and you notice you're falling just short, okay, we're falling just short, then a good idea is to try to find a way to cover a square or to resolve the reason why you are falling just short so that after, let's say, a freeing move, now our tactic works. We've set up our tactic, and now it works. In this case, of course, the tactic is a trapped piece. We control a square, we push the king away from a square, so now we control e7, and the trapped piece, the bishop on d8, will fall. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please remember to rate it, leave a comment if you want to, and subscribe.